probably never leave me. And it was not necessarily in my treatment, but in the treatment of somebody else that I observed. This is this person who's unable to speak. And she's, having that treatment. They have lasers, they have music going. And I think the whole office came in and started singing this song together to encourage her to be able to speak. And you just don't find that everywhere. That compassion for someone, and that the uniqueness to come and want to be a part of it and sing with joy and love, like that will probably never leave my mind. Like I honestly, I got goosebumps when I was watching it, and I thought, oh, God is most definitely present here.
So as a caregiver, you hold so much of their trauma in yourself. For me personally, I was trying to take his trauma, trying to take his pain, trying to take all of that into my own body so that he didn't have to feel that. And I thought that I had let it go, but until I sat with Dr. Jerry, I had not let go of it, obviously, because I still felt that tension in my body. But as soon as she did that to me, it was like a full release of just everything. And I let out a huge breath, and Jaden let out a huge breath at the exact same time that I did. We're so connected that if I let my trauma go from this situation, he'll feel that trauma leave his body too. And then he can feel the peace, then I think he has the opportunity to heal.
Thank everyone for coming. I appreciate it. My name is Christi Rodakis. I'm a Neuromovement practitioner in Dallas, Texas. I'm not a public speaker, so I have my outline. If I have to run back to it, that's what's going on. I forgot what I was going to talk about. But I'm going to try and keep it light and informational today. I know you guys have received a ton of information this weekend, and so if you have any questions as we're going, feel free to ask me, and if not, we'll save some time at the end, and if you don't want to ask it in a public setting, grab me afterwards. I'm happy to answer any questions. So a little bit about myself. I have a 15-year-old son with autism. He was diagnosed with severe autism at the age of 2, which was pretty rare back in those days to get a diagnosis that young. So just to give you an idea of how severe he was and is. We were diagnosed and kind of said, he has severe autism. Good luck. This is the way he is, and this is the way he'll always be, and just do the best you can. There's OT, there's PT, there's speech therapy, and there's ABA, which is a behavioral therapy that a lot of kids with autism use. And so we were like, okay, we'll take that, and my husband and I were like, that's it. No one else is going to tell us what to do. We just go try and find these practitioners or these therapists. So we started researching online, both of us, just anything we could find. And one of the first things I came across was an online autism summit. And one of the speakers was Anat Baniel. And I listened to her presentation and I was like, wow, she's really intelligent and has lots of interesting, unique ideas. And I just kind of was impressed by her. But that was really early on in my journey. And so we did all the things that they told us to do. We went to speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, ABA therapy, and some other weird stuff that we found along the way. And we were kind of doing that. And things were going okay. and my son was getting closer to going to school, to kindergarten. And he had kind of some unusual movement patterns, like, you know, when he walks, he kind of throws his arm out to the side and whips his hip around. And he like kind of dragged his left side. He would do everything with his right side and kind of drag the left side around. And my husband was really concerned that when he went to school, he was going to stand out and be bullied. And that was a big concern. It's like, you know, we need to help him look as normal as possible so that he'll fit in. So then I remembered this presentation I had seen by Anat Baniel. And I was like, well, I remember something about neuromovement. Maybe that could help with this, you know, the weird movement patterns. So let me look it up. So I found a practitioner in Dallas, and we started taking him. And she put him on the table, and she did all these little movements with him. And we went for a while, and I would watch, and I would, you know, be curious as to what was happening. And I'm looking for changes. Is he still doing this? Yes, he's still doing this. But he started making better eye contact. I noticed he was calmer. We were having less fits, you know, what we called in our family meltdowns, where he would just kind of like lose it and be on the ground and not be able to recover. We were seeing that less often. He was stringing more words together. He would have like one word here, one word there, and he started stringing them together. So I was like, what is happening here? You know, like I see what she's doing. It doesn't have anything to do with any of these other changes I'm seeing. So I started asking a lot of questions, and I got really interested. And she was like, it's a brain change. The brain is becoming better organized, and that presents itself differently in every child. You know, every human is a unique human with unique abilities, unique genetics, and unique experiences. And how they put that together looks a little different. So yes, we're using movements, but the brain is getting better organized. And that is where these changes are coming from. So I kept asking questions, and she encouraged me to become a practitioner or to go take the training. And so eventually that's what I did. In 2016, I started the basic training. In 2018, I graduated from Children's Mastery, and have had a small practice in Dallas ever since. Worked with my son a lot, worked with a lot of different kids over the past few years with all kinds of different conditions, genetic disorders, injuries. And so I have some experience under my belt, and I just really love the method. I think it's so powerful, and just so happy that I found my way to it. A little bit about the history of neuromovement. I think some of you went to the Feldenkrais presentation yesterday. So Feldenkrais developed the method 70 years ago or something, and there is a Feldenkrais Guild that's international. So there are lots of practitioners around the world that have been doing this kind of work for 70 years. Anat trained under Feldenkrais, and when he passed away, she was the leader of the training program. But then she eventually broke off from the guild and started her own practice, which was originally ABM, Anat Baniel Method, and eventually she added the Neuromovement just to give some context to people. It was like, ABM, what's ABM? You know, so we put Neuromovement on there. Sometimes I accidentally refer to it as ABM because that's the way I learned it, but ABM Neuromovement, it's Feldenkrais for that matter, it's all kind of the same idea. So that's just kind of the history of how it evolved. Anat had a huge special needs following, and so there's lots of practitioners that have gone through the training that are parents of kids with special needs. There are lots of OTs, PTs, you know, that had clients that they saw changes in and didn't know why, you know, and so they got interested in the method and ended up becoming practitioners. There's doctors that have taken it. There's all kinds of people that have gone through the training. So it's great, and there's lots of practitioners, but it's not a super organized organization, and so sometimes it can be hard to find a practitioner. So if any of you, you know, at the end are interested and want to find a practitioner in your area, track me down. I know lots of different ways to find who will be closest to you and who will be helpful for that. So now let's get into a little bit of what is neuromovement. If you go on the website, the definition reads, a systematic approach to communicating with the brain through connection, movement, and the 9 essentials that potentiates the remarkable capabilities of the brain to recognize and organize new information, driving the creation of new connections and new possibilities. It's a mouthful, but what does that mean? It means we're going to use connection. It means we're going to use movement, and we're going to take the 9 essentials, and we're going to feed the brain useful information so that it can in turn take that information, organize it, and create new connections and new possibilities. How they organize it looks a little different for every human being. But that's kind of the basis and the underlying idea of what we're going for. When I was thinking about coming here and talking to you guys today, I was like, what do they need to know? And I guess first there are kind of 4 big ideas that I think are important to think about when you're considering neuromovement and what it is and how it works. One is the idea of neuroplasticity. So it's a buzzword. Everybody's talking about it these days. Everybody's trying their different methods and ways to get in. But I think it's important to know that the brain can change. And that has always been a core belief of neuromovement, is the brain can change regardless of the brain, the human, can change, regardless of age, injury, any sort of limitation. There's always possibility to grow and evolve and do more. So that is a core belief of neuromovements, and something that Anat and Feldenkrais witnessed and experienced themselves, and so they knew it to be true because they had seen it. They believed it to be true, even when the medical society, community did not believe it to be true, years ago. Luckily, things have evolved, and everyone is kind of on board with the idea, like, yes, it can happen, it does happen. Let's figure out how we can take advantage of it. So that's the first big idea. The second big idea is really a difference in approach. Rather than approaching how we interact with the person, we're really moving from focusing on trying to fix something or overcome some sort of limitation to just connection. That's first and foremost what we're going for. I need to connect with my clients. I need to make sure they feel safe. I need to make sure that their nervous system is in a calm state and they are ready to learn. And they can't do that if they don't feel safe, if they're overstimulated, if they're scared, of what's about to happen, or they don't understand what's going to happen. So really, connection is a super important piece. And it also allows us to focus on the possibility rather than the limitation. It just opens up this whole world when you take the focus off the limitation and trying to fix it and make the arm move or make the baby roll over or make the head be held upright. And we're not going to focus on that. Yes, we want it to happen someday, but that's not going to be our focus. We're going to focus on what is and what could possibly be the next iteration, the next step, the next little thing that we could see naturally happening, and that it's possible for that child today. And when we focus there, it just opens up a whole world of opportunity and allows everyone to work from a happy space of place and not out of fear. It just really kind of takes the fear away from the child, from the parents. We're just in a state of exploration, a state of wonder, and we're going to move through this and see what can happen, what is possible. The third big idea about neuromovement that kind of differentiates it from other approaches movement is the language of the brain. That was kind of Anat's idea. It's like movement is the language. It's the way we communicate with the brain. We're going to use movement to feed the brain all this information. If you think about a newborn that may be laying on its back, and they have these random movements where the leg will kick out, or they'll turn their head, or the hands will come up. All of these little random movements have a purpose. You know, they're feeding this child information that they eventually will organize in a way that will be useful for them. After, 10 iterations, 15,000 iterations of this, they figure out how to get the hand to the mouth and get the food to the mouth. So that's if you go at it and you watch a typically developing baby from a different perspective, you'll see how many times they play with things and try things and don't have successful outcome. And then boom, one day they do, and it's like, oh, all of these things had to happen and had to be there for them to put it together in a useful way. They didn't come out of the womb knowing how to roll over or to come to sitting, or hold their head up, any of those things. They had to have all these other tiny little movement experiences in order for that to come together and be there for that child. And then the fourth big idea are the 9 essentials. And the 9 essentials are just kind of words or parameters that Anat Baniel has put together, where she kind of defined what the ideal conditions are under which this lasting brain change can happen. Because, when the first time something comes together and there's that new connection, it's fragile, it happens. It's an accident most of the times, and we're not sure how they put it together. So we want to do it under ideal conditions so that it can really groove in and be there to be accessed again in the future. So that's kind of the big ideas that I was thinking about that I think it's important for you to know and understand about neuromovement. And then I thought what we could do next, for those who are interested and still have a little bit of energy, is we could do a little movement lesson here. So everybody who's up for it, you're going to be in your chairs, and I'll just kind of walk everybody through some movements, and it'll kind of give you an idea of what your child or loved one might experience if they came to a lesson with me, and how it works, and you'll have something to refer back to. Don't worry, it's easy. Everybody can do it, I promise. Before we get started, just some things to keep in mind. All the movements should be done slowly. We're not going to rush through anything. Just take it slow, take your time. We're going to do small and gentle movements. So that means we're not going to go as far as we can go. We're not going to stretch. We're not going to go past what feels comfortable and easy. I'm just going to do it nice in a comfortable range. And then, of course, if you have any pain doing anything, just stop and wait until the next movement comes along. Just don't do it, because we don't want to be in pain. That's a sign that our body gives us that something's not working right. We want to listen to it. Okay, so for those who want to participate, I'll have you scoot to the edge of your chair and just kind of spread your feet comfortably, knees apart, and just find a place what's most comfortable for you. And this will be like your neutral or home position. And now take both of your arms between your knees and let them hang between your legs, and just reach down toward the floor and come back up. Just move where it's nice and easy and go down and back up. Do that 3 or 4 times, making sure you're going gently and slowly, and just see how far down you go with ease. Perfect. Good, and once you've done it 3 or 4 times, just sit back up and rest for a moment. You got to do it. That's why she brought you here. She made you come. Okay. All right. So now, from this neutral position, we're going to place our hands on our knees. And from here, we're going to bend our head and shoulders sideways to the right for a moment. So you start from the neutral position, and your head and your shoulders are just going to bend to the right and back up. Well, this is my right, but if you guys do the left, you can do the other one next time. So just back and forth 3 or 4 times, nice and slow, and see what you notice when you're doing those movements. And then back to your neutral and rest for a moment. And so from here, we're going to do the other side. Take your head and your shoulders, and we're going to bend them to the left a few times. Just nice and slow, gentle, easy. Take your head and shoulders. And notice if you can feel the movement in your head and shoulders. See if you can sense or feel any of your other body parts moving while you do this. And then go back to your home position and rest for a moment. And the rests are important. You have to give your nervous system a minute to take in the new information that it's just received. Okay, now this is where it gets a little complicated. We're gonna gently twist your head and shoulders to the right, just to where it's comfortable, and then stop there and hold it. And from that position, round your back, and then come back, straighten back up. So twisted to the right, we're gonna round our back, and come back up to sitting. And again, these can be teeny tiny movements. They don't have to be big, just whatever is easy and comfortable. And once you've done it 2 or 3 times, come back to the center and rest. See, all these are unique movements, have all kinds of things going on. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing to the left. So gently turn your shoulders and head to the left and hold it there. And again, from this position, we're going to round the back and come back up to sitting, straighten the spine, and round. And once you've done it 3 or 4 times, come back to your neutral position. Okay. Okay, now from the home neutral position, we're going to continue to face forward this time. And we are going to round our back, pull our belly in, round, bringing your head and shoulders. Oh, I skipped one. Sorry. Don't do that yet. We're going to come back to that one. I got ahead of myself. Okay, from this rounded position, we're going to stop and we're going to bring both our head and shoulders to the right and then to the left. So your back is turned, your back is rounded, but your head and shoulders are going to turn from the left to the right. Back and forth a few times. And then come back to your neutral and give yourself your rest. Okay, now we're going to do the one I thought we were going to do. Okay, so again from your home position, facing the middle, have your hands on your thighs or your knees, and we're going to lift your right shoulder towards your ear and then lower it. Lift your shoulder up and down. And just notice what you feel moving when you do that. And now we're going to do the left side a few times. And then you can alternate back and forth, once on the right, once on the left. And just stay in your range that's easy and comfortable. Perfect. And then everyone stop that and take your rest for a moment. And then again, from your home position, we're going to round our back, pull your belly in, and then arch your back, roll your pelvis forward, and push your belly out. So only as far as it's comfortable. But we're going to pull the belly in and round the back, then arch the back, roll the pelvis forward, and stick that belly out. Good. Back and forth a few times there. And then stop and go back to your neutral position for a moment. And then finally from here, we're going to go back to our original movements. We're going to let our hands hang between our legs and just reach down towards the ground and see where you can go and how it feels now. See if you can notice a difference from the first time you did that, perhaps, or not. Or maybe you have to run away and never want to do this again. So and that concludes your very first movement lesson. Just as a show of hands, did anyone notice a change from the first time they did the movement lesson? Great, awesome. Anyone who raised their hand care to share what difference they noticed? Anyone?
Range of motion.
Range of motion? You feel like you went further down? Easier, maybe
Yeah, I felt like I just kind of fell into the ground.
less resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Perfect. Show of hands, anyone not notice a difference? Your husband? He's like, it didn't work. I'm out of here. Yeah. Well,
I didn't notice a difference, but I did notice a lot of pain, like when I was doing all of those things.
in each of the movements along the way. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, that's it's right, and so that's why we have to like teach to do the really teeny tiny movements and only go what is comfortable, and it takes training, to like train yourself not to go, because you hear the instructions, and we as a society are used to hearing our instructions and following them, right, and not listening to our intuition and our experience and doing that. We're following the directions, but we have to get in tune with ourselves, and that's honestly such a huge part of neuromovement, is like getting in tune and feeling and listening to what you feel.
Is it possible that happens to people who have hang-ups with like soft touching, for example? Like I hate soft touching and slow. Like, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
Like if somebody comes up to me and does this, I'm like, oh, yes.
Like you want more, like go, 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 go. Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, we are our experience, and But yeah, for sure, we become who we are, and we are our habits. And so if we're a fast go, 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 go person, it might feel uncomfortable and unusual to slow down, right? So it's like, ooh, this is so different. I don't like it. It's icky, So like I'm used to going, I gotta move. And that's the same thing that's happening with all of our kids and their brains. They have a movement pattern that's in there, and it's grooved, and it's comfortable, and it feels easy. And we're going to stick to it. So if our head's this way and this is where it feels good, or my son, when he did this, that's what he's used to doing. It feels good. It's natural. I don't have to think about it. And then if I try and, work around that and maybe move it here, move it there, the first instinct might feel uncomfortable. It might feel unusual. But the more we can do those little pieces in a way that feels safe and comfortable for the child, the more it opens up the world of possibilities. So yeah, I think that's totally normal, and it's great. It's a great answer, and I'm sorry you had pain. Don't go as far the next time, because you have to like train yourself to listen to yourself and make those, override the instructions if it doesn't feel right, right?
Christi,
So
is that also part of like our trauma response to things, like the fight or flight side of
when you say "our," meaning the parents,
our
or are all humans?
Oh, well, parents in particular, because I felt pain as well, but I also know the movement.
Mm-hmm.
So, but isn't that part of our like nervous system in that trauma, like fight or flight?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why, this method, going through my training and all of this has been, so useful for me, which was the part I did not expect. I thought I was going to learn how to do this and teach my son things, and then potentially work with other kids. I wasn't even sure when I took the training if that's what I was going to do. But the whole experience was very healing for me as a parent, because I learned how to get in touch with myself. I learned how to slow back down, and how to take things in and process and learn new ways of coping and doing things and breathing and sleeping and all those things that kind of went away in the traumatic times. So it's the same process for us as the parents as it is for the kids. You know, we all have to learn new things, and if we go about it under the right conditions and environment, we'll have more success. So,
Can I ask you a question?
absolutely.
Like, we did these side movements, but then why were we able to reach more, like, how did those movements translate in the end to the central?
Yeah.
Like, what about those?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'm thinking of my daughter, right? I'm like, okay, if I want her to reach more or have greater range of motion, we'll just keep doing that motion.
Yeah.
I would never have thought to be like, turn to your right. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So how does that?
Yeah, so you know, we're about to talk about the 9 essentials, but one of the 9 essentials is variation, and so just having this variety of movements is just another way of feeding the brain useful information. Okay, so this is not the only way. There are other body parts that participate. Like when you're reaching down, right, obviously your back is rounding a little bit, your pelvis is rolling, but everything has to allow for that to happen. And so when you do these other movements, you're kind of bringing awareness to your brain, like, okay, these actually are going to participate in every movement. So when you bring a little bit of awareness, and we do some side bending, we did some twisting, so we used the spine in a variety of ways, then we went back to the original movements, it was easier. You know, so, yes?
So if you have a child that's not moving much at all,
No self-generated movement.
are you doing whatever those movements are for them?
Yes.
Okay.
And I start really teeny tiny.
And if they can't, like, they can't sit up unsupported or anything?
Yeah.
Just work through all that.
We start, you know, laying on your back from the tiny little things, and yes, you know, absolutely, I would do those movements and generate it, and I would do them in a way that's really slow and helps them feel what they're experiencing, and in a varied way, and so kind of all the things we're about to talk about. But absolutely, you know, we want to recreate for these kids. They're real challenges, right? It's not, I mean, they have a brain injury, that's true, so they have to be more intelligent than the average human. You know, they have to work harder. I don't want to say work harder, because we want it to be easy, we want it to be natural, we want it to happen we want the process to go in a way that feels safe and comfortable to them. So I don't like that term, work harder, but they do have a real challenge to overcome. It's not, I don't want to like make you think that, oh, every child is capable of doing all these things. Every child is capable of changing and of learning and of growing, and where they end up, who knows? Like, the possibilities are endless. But yeah, but they do have some real challenges that they have to overcome, you know, and to work with. So.
He does like a different alternative of this, but she does everything when they're not in that position.
Yeah. And we work in a way that's comfortable and, you know, in teeny tiny. We just start from the very basics. And there's a lot of like learning that goes into in our training of like what happens with a typically developing baby, so that we can kind of recreate some of that stuff, you know, and hopefully have, you know, years and years of evolution on our side helping us. Like, they may recognize, oh, this is the first thing that, you know, typically happens. So with that, any other questions right now? Good? Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit. Sorry.
How does your method help, like, with dystonia?
Well, dystonia, you know, there are some techniques that we have that can, when we're working with the child and moving with them, that we can kind of take over the movement, because with dystonia, the brain kind of like goes, like fires hard, and then so the movements are happening, you know, and it's the same with like kind of spasticity with CP, you know, it's just firing hard. And so we have some techniques that help us communicate, hey, brain, you don't have to work so hard, you know, like we can do this in another way that's easier. And so, you know, we'll kind of take over the weight of the arm when it's like really contracting, and send the message to the brain, this doesn't have to work so hard, like there's another way, we got it, it's supported, you don't have to work right now. Because I think, you know, there are some pathways that are formed where they think the brain is just firing and thinks that something needs to happen. So it's you know, it's complex, and there's a lot of like thought behind it, but there are techniques to help with that.
Because my daughter suffers from spasticity and dystonia.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, she tries to take steps on her own and can take steps like hard, like she has movements that she can't control.
Right.
So at first, the doctors, because we live in New York, upstate, and it's type small, so the doctors are not really aware of anatomic brain injury so much. So when she does this, he was like, oh, she's just playing. Like, then I took her to Boston Children's Hospital. They're like, she has dystonia.
Yeah, she's not playing. Yeah.
She's not playing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, I mean, you just have to take each individual and start working from where they are and introducing things and see how they respond.
Do you have colleagues?
Absolutely. I can definitely find me afterwards and I'll help you track down New Yorkers. Okay, awesome. So we're going to go through, I'll try and keep it light just quickly. So these are the 9 essentials. And like I mentioned earlier, they are really the ideal conditions under which lasting brain change occur. So as a practitioner, when I'm working with a child or an adult, anyone, these are the conditions, these are the ideals that I'm trying to keep in mind at all times, because they really help to like groove the changes in. So the first is movement with attention. So we all just did that. By following directions and doing unique movements, we're already paying attention, right? It's waking up the brain right there. It's like, what are we doing? I'm turning what way and doing that. So we're moving and we're paying attention and we're getting involved in the learning process. So that's kind of the first element. 2, slow. Slow is super important. I said it, a million times while we were doing our lessons. We got to go slow. Slow, first and foremost, because we can't learn anything new fast. You got to go slow. It also is another technique to wake up the brain. When you move super slow, slower than you're used to moving, all of a sudden you're paying attention and you're noticing what's happening. Yeah, do you agree? Do you agree? So, yeah, definitely slow is like super important. And what we base all of our lessons around is just slowing things down so that we can feel what's happening, we can notice the changes. It gives us all this opportunity for learning. Third one, variation. So, variation in the movements, right? We're going to vary up everything that we do. We want to give an abundance of information. So we want to change things up, and we can vary them up, teeny tiny variations. But we don't want to just do the same thing over and over and over again because we've already got that information, right? We need something else to go with that we can then organize. So even if, say, you're changing a diaper and you lift the legs up and you go the same, way every day, you can introduce variation into your life with your child, just rock, think of it like a clock. And it's like instead of going 12 o'clock, go 11 o'clock, go 10 o'clock, go nice and slow to 10 o'clock. Then go, and when you change up your routine and vary it, even in the slightest way, it's giving the brain more information to work with and giving him a better chance to organize it and to put it to use. So variation is super important. We don't want to do repetitive things. We're not in Neuromovement. We will never send you home with homework. Do 10 sit-ups and lift your leg 4 times, and we're never going to have that. We may, tell you to play the clock game when you're changing the diaper, but it's going to be in a varied way. There's never going to be, at-home exercises, so to speak, where you're going to repeat the same thing over and over and over again.
I have a question here.
Yes.
Right? So we love ABM. We've done it twice.
Uh-huh.
And I've read the whole book.
Yes.
Well, but we also swear by BMI, right? Which that's what she was saying that to not do. So because it's a lot of repetition every day, so that gets
Okay, I'll just be totally honest with you. I went to the DMI talk yesterday, and it was the first introduction I've had. I've heard of it, but yeah. So it's almost opposite of what we talk, and so I am still processing it. I'm still processing it because when I was sitting here listening to the conversation, I'm like, okay, look, people go there and they swear and they have results, you know, and that they're seeing things, and these parents are, you know, returning to it. And I have clients that do it, you know, so they're doing just like you guys are doing ABM and they're doing DMI. So, yeah, I'm still trying to decide where I come out on that because it was all super new to me. Yeah. So I'll give you my email address or my phone number, and you call me in a week when I, you know, kind of think.
I almost have to say, you almost have to pick a path. And that's where we were at when we started with ABM. We could either go the route of doing the things like through DMI channel, or traditional PT, OT, braces, walkers, standers, all those things. But from the results we saw, and in our gut and in our hearts, between myself and my husband, and then the way my son, who was really what it's all about, was perceiving the changes, was enjoying the work. It's a process, and we're just taking it one lesson at a time, 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time, because his progress and the promotion of like those neural connections are working in so many different ways that each brain is going to implement it differently, and it's going to continue to build upon each other. So their movement becomes what you want it to achieve, and that I feel like the DMI,
Or at least some version of it, yeah. Yeah.
Right, but it's really teaching a whole different process that the brain and the body learns all at one time together. That's my personal bias.
Yeah.
I will swear by ABM.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Like, I think like sometimes you gotta take a step back and actually listen to your child. Like for in our case, Callan, like I was like so anxious to just try to help him, and he told me that he likes to take things at a slower pace. He doesn't want all his sensories going off all at one time. Focus on one sensory, work with that, then move on to something else. And I've really learned to respect him on that.
Yeah, well, but I mean, our case, right? Like we try to take the instructions home with DMI because you want to keep doing what we want you to do, but because we also know of ABM, there are times when ABM kicks in, like, okay, I shouldn't do it this way, right? Because this way it's forcing the child to do something. So it's like, okay, they have some of the solution, this also has some of the solution. Like you kind of like, you put them together, and then but like our ABM told us, okay, she's not advocating for physical therapy, so don't do it, right? DMI is like, okay, I don't know about ABM, so.
Listen, you know, I'm a special needs mom too, so I have 100% been there where I was doing anything and everything, and eventually that first wears you out. Like you cannot keep up that pace, you know, for years and years and years. So you have to decide and go through the process yourself of, you know, what's working, what feels right, what's, you know, we were talking before we started about, you know, what's good for the family, you know, not just the one member of the family, you know, and where do we feel comfortable and what makes sense to us, you know, how do we take in all this different information, varied information, right? And you're going to have to process it and make it make sense to you. And it doesn't happen overnight. You know, you have to keep trying, and then you'll find your way. And, you know, eventually we stopped everything except for ABM and school. You know, he was in school and that was it. And but, you know, I have a client who's kind of leaning towards that. She's dropping stuff and she's like, how long did it take you? And I'm like, a lot longer than it's taking you, you know, like that's all I'll say, you know, like, because I do really believe that this is an amazing underlying foundation and really turns on the learning switch, which is what we want, right? You know, my main goal as a practitioner is not to teach the kids how to roll, not to teach them how to sit up, not to teach them how to do math. It's to teach them to be, or help them become a super potent learner, the most potent learner they can become. You know, and that's my goal as a practitioner. You know, obviously I want them to do all the things. You know, I want them to stand up, I want them to walk and talk and laugh and have friends and go to school and suck, roll over, whatever it is we're going for. You know, I want them to have that too, but I can keep that, you know, one of the goals, one of the essentials we're getting to is flexible goals. I can keep that in my mind and out there and want those things, but I can be flexible, you know, along the way about how we get there, or B, if we ever get there. Maybe we won't get there, but maybe we'll get somewhere equally as wonderful, but it'll be here instead, you know. So it's a really good question you just asked, and one you and I will process simultaneously. Okay, enthusiasm. So enthusiasm can be a tricky one. Because a lot of times we talk about enthusiasm with the parents, and the parents are like, think it's cheer, get up, clap, yay, you're doing such a good job, yay, 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 yay. But we actually coach against that. You know, when a child is doing something new or something novel, something great that we've been hoping they would do, we want to have that enthusiasm. That helps groove in that change. But we don't want to take them out of their own personal experience. So we have internal enthusiasm. I loved this image that I found because you can see the mom loves the baby. She's so happy, so proud, and the baby's happy, you know? It's just like, yeah, I get it. I feel your love, but, you know, I'm in the moment, you know? I'm not being taken out of the moment because you're cheering and yelling, and I don't even know what you're cheering and yelling about. I just know something happened that you liked, but now I don't know anything, you know? So enthusiasm is important, but we have to, you know, have ourselves come back a little bit. I worked with one client recently, and the mom was very, like, kind of loud like me and kind of enthusiastic, and I'm like, look, if he does something like that you've never seen before, you have to, like, not cheer and go crazy. Like, you, and she's like, okay. And I'm like if he rolled over, because he had never rolled over before. And before we finished the intensive, apparently he had rolled over at home. And she came in the next day and she's like, thank God you told me that. She's like, he did it. I went in my bedroom, I closed the door, I screamed. She's like, but I didn't do it in front of him. And I'm like, good, perfect. Yes, you have a question?
I just wanted to agree with you on that, because when my daughter was in the hospital and the speech therapist was like, yay, Naraya, you're putting stuff in your mouth, yay. She was like rejecting it. Like, she started looking at us like,
well, she didn't know. She doesn't know what are you cheering on? Like, what's going on, you know?
Like yelling and screaming at her, and we didn't understand why. So going through this course, I understand a little bit more. Like,
yeah. So it's important. We want to be enthusiastic. We love our kids. We're happy for them. We want them to know that we're proud of them. But we have to, you know, keep it internal, and they'll feel it. They'll feel it. They know when we love them. They know when we're proud of them. So we don't have to jump and cheer and scream. And we have to keep our, you know, therapists and friends from doing the same, because it's part of our society. That's what we do. You know, we cheer. We watch football, we cheer. Okay, flexible goals, I talked about that a little bit before, you know, and again, we're implementing that in every single lesson that we do. You know, I definitely come in to my lessons with a general idea of what we're going to work on, and sometimes that's what we do, and sometimes it's not. We got to, you know, deal with moods, or maybe we need a diaper change, you know, or maybe they're just not up for sitting up or working in a position that I had kind of in mind. So we have to be flexible on a daily basis, and we have to be flexible in the grand scheme of things on how we get to wherever it is we're going. The learning switch. This is, you know, the idea that we're just in a learning mode. We're becoming a potent learner. We're in the process. It's what we're going for. We're going for taking these kids and helping them learn how to flip their own learning switch so that they can become potent learners, and they can be involved. They can take in all of their experiences in life and put them together in a useful way. Imagination and dreams. We want to be able to imagine things, you know, that aren't possible. So this is that aren't currently possible. We want to be able to imagine what they would be like. We can use the imagination in our lessons. You know, if there's something, people who are, you know, able to talk through things, or maybe can't move an arm but can do other things with the right, maybe one side, their left side, we can use imagination to work with the other side. We use it in the lessons all the time, especially like my kids that have had strokes, so they're affected on one side. So we'll use imagination. Don't even try it with the whatever arm is, you know, giving you trouble. Don't even try it. Just imagine what it would be like, you know, in your mind. Think about what it would be if you picked a ball up and threw it. So we use imagination as one of our tools. great way to create new connections in the brain. And then, of course, awareness is, important. One of the essentials, we just have to be aware. Am I doing what I think I'm doing? Am I calling out the instruction that I intended to call out? No, I'm not. Okay, stop. Back off a little bit. Start again and do what you want to be doing. But be aware of what's happening. Don't, power through and just keep going. Be aware, be subtle, be able to back off and try new things. So that is kind of the 9 essentials and what I'm always trying to keep in mind when I'm working with my clients. They're great parameters for interacting with your kids on a daily basis, because really if you can think about those and all the little daily interactions and help the kid become a learner throughout the day and not just in the 45 minutes that they're at PT or Neuromovement or whenever, that's when they're going to be doing their best. So, yes?
When you're guiding a patient, do you verbalize and tell them what they're about to do? Do you give, we're going to move your right side now, especially if you're the one moving it for them?
Yes.
You say it out loud.
I'm not 100% of the time, but yes, as I get to know them better, but it's especially if I had a new client, regardless of their current ability, yes, I'm going to assume that they understand everything I'm saying, because if they don't understand the words, they'll understand my tone. They'll understand that something's about to happen, and it'll kind of prepare them. And then it's not shocking, it's not jarring to the nervous system. So 100%. I always talk through what's about to happen. Not always, but usually, especially when I'm getting to know someone.
I think you treated Isaac in Dallas. Does your building have plants in the middle?
I knew I recognized you. I knew I recognized you. I'm like, how do I know you?
I
Yes.
will say, obviously, it's not my thing. I stated that earlier. But it was painful for me to watch. But I saw results immediately with him. We do so many different things that it's hard to pick one.
Yes.
But
yes.
it
Yes.
looks like you were doing nothing.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating.
Yeah, I know.
But I think that's all we did that week.
Yeah.
2 weeks maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because it's been bothering me. I'm like, how do I know her? How do I know her?
I remember instant changes.
Yes.
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 At home, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't related
To what we were doing. Yes, it's
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
I took
Yeah,
that
thank you.
Feldenkrais lesson through Erin Finkelstein, because that's what I have my son in. And I cannot tell you how shockingly amazed I was, how these tiny, itty bitty, nothing movements, and how incredible I felt afterwards. I see her monthly now.
Yes.
Of just
Hopefully.
the stress and her
Yeah.
because of everything. I mean, years of I have this permanent knot here from an accident from when I was in my early 20s. And she's the first person who's ever brought me relief. I've seen chiropractors, I've done deep therapy.
Oh, so you did it for you.
I did
Yeah.
it for
For
me.
yourself, if you haven't done it.
And
Yeah.
oh my goodness. I mean, I went home and was like, I can't even explain how incredible I feel. And it was like, it felt like nothing type movements.
Because you let her do it for you and you let her slow you down?
No, I would say
It's
it's not.
just because of what it is. I mean, it's literally going all the way down to your skeleton. So it's just, it's literally,
And really,
the way she explains it, it's literally your body moving the way it's meant to move. From the skeletal
Instead
sense.
of your own
So instead of your
dysfunction
muscles,
patterns.
instead of your nerves, going even
Habits.
deeper than that.
Habits. I mean, everybody has habits. We all move in habitual ways. We think in habitual ways. We talk in habitual ways. But yes, it's a habit. Yes, Judy.
So how does this differ from MNRI?
I don't know a ton about MNRI. I know it has to do with primitive reflexes. What I do understand seems like it would be complementary. So I think what they're doing and going after is kind of a different approach, but we're still working with the nervous system. And so yeah, I did want to hear, I think she's having a presentation now.
There was one.
Yes.
Oh, there was one yesterday. Maybe during SPML, maybe.
Our
That's why I
clinic
missed it.
has done MNRI.
Mhm.
I just wondered, is that similar?
Mm-hmm.
They're very different.
Are they different?
Yeah, because we've been to several MNRI conferences, and the way the touch is, like, I'm supposed to be doing at-home protocols for MNRI, but I'm way too spastic and jumpy and tough, like, you know, hard touch.
Yeah.
To slow myself down enough to do it. But it's very gentle like that. But
Yeah.
it's just
Different.
It's not apples to apples.
Yeah. But I think they are different, but I think, but maybe not, like the DMIs is like kind of completely opposite, you know, approaches. So, yeah, I think it would be complementary from what I understand and what I've heard from my other clients. So, yeah.
We have an interesting experience with ABM, right? So you did once in Dallas. I think we're looking for you, but you're not available most of the time. Yeah, there's another lady in Dallas who did. But then the second time was in Austin here. I don't remember the name.
Carol Heath. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I used to bring my son to Carol.
He doesn't speak, and he wasn't speaking at the time, but he had certain words like in and out. Because we practice those with him, we'd always repeat in when you put something in, something and out. And then once in a while, word here and there. And then when we did ABM, when we went back home, he stopped vocalizing anything. He just nothing.
Just quit talking after an ABM intensive.
Yeah.
Really?
And so I think then people said, oh yeah, when you're trying to focus on something, then maybe they lose something else, right? So you're trying to figure out if it's because maybe you're trying to focus on his gross motor, which became better, but then speech was like, we just lost everything.
That's
Yeah,
really.
right, yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. We don't know if it's because you're trying to focus.
Did it ever come back?
Now he's still trying to, but between, yeah.
Not to the same degree.
Yeah.
But it's also,
Does he have seizures? No. Okay. So nothing else.
But now his motor has taken off, and so now it's like the speech is trying to come back. But we stopped ABM for that reason, right? We were like,
Yeah.
We ain't sure.
did that
Yeah.
cause-
Yeah. I mean, I get it. And it's hard to like parse out, you know. And look, we're a system, you know. There's no separation between brain and body, and we're all one system.
But he did become more aware. Even with the loss,
Yeah.
his awareness was more, he was more alert.
Yes. To his surroundings and what was happening.
Right? Like, he was more present. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming back.
Yeah, it's really, yeah. I mean, I have had, you know, clients tell me like, oh, you know, he was off the rails this afternoon.